Hello and welcome to Flashback. This week we're doing February 1996, and it's me, RGT, and as always, joined by, now what can I say this week? I always
Careful
have to
what you do say.
He's the CEO
Hmm.
of the Unofficial Controller podcast, co-presenter of Flashback.
Wow.
Some say a game and god, collector of curios, a toy collector.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a long list I could add to you. But anyway, if you want to know who it is, it's George. How you doing, George?
Hello. After that,
Wow.
I don't, I guess I probably factor into some of that. Good to be back. Hello to you. Another episode of Flashy B ready to drop out the socket. A bit more restrained, nostalgic show than the main show, which is a little bit gaudy at times. So welcome to the calm area.
Gaming corner.
The gaming corner.
Yeah.
But I'm ready to rip in because I've seen the year. I'm excited. I have lots to talk about. Some things about games that you'd be like, George, but honestly, really? So you better keep an eye on me, RGT, because I could get a little bit dangerous.
No problem at all. I think this is going to be a good one. I think most of them are good. It's just more interesting than anything going back and seeing all these nostalgia trips. And like I said, this is episode 9. I can't believe we're on episode 9 already. If this is your first flashback, basically what we do what we would have been playing in the era. We do the news. We do what we would have been hoping to play in the era, with a little bit of Stingray's Boot, which is a little bit of a nod to our other show, Unofficial Controller podcast. But I think let's jump in, shall we, George? What we would have been playing in February 1996.
Listen, I was looking through this list and I think we had a conversation off air. I can't remember if it was a dream or real or it happened on the other show or not. I don't even know anymore. But I was away on this list and it was reminding me of a time when PlayStation wasn't home and dry. And I remember a time where I'd bought this grey piece of magical plastic and I was bouncing around trying to find games to play on it. Now, the game I want to start with is a game called Lone Soldier. Now, it's a young lad at Gotham Games called Josh, not the owner, but he was like one of the assistants there. Lovely guy. He had an uncle that worked on Lone Soldier, and I've actually got a signed copy by Matey Boy's nephew. It says on the front,
No.
Gotham Games. Yeah, I've
Well,
got
the
that
weird
there.
thing was, I was gonna Lone Soldier. I thought I had this game. I haven't. I don't know why this game rings a bell with me. I
I'll
couldn't
tell
think
you
So I
why.
was going to ask you about this on the show to see if you've played it. Well, there you go.
I owned it. I think I got it at launch. As I say, it was a weird time for the PlayStation. There were no established names or brands other than third-party names and brands that could attach to it. So everyone was giving it a go. And in the early days of PlayStation, most of these 3D polygonal games were everywhere, but all of them were of good quality. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't remember Lone Soldier as being any quality at all. And it was times, another game on this list, for every Alien Trilogy you brought home, you probably brought home 3 Lone Soldiers. The equation was way off in the early days, and I was struggling to. Every now and then you'd get yourself Alien Trilogy, which I'll get into in a moment because it's one of my favourite PlayStation 1 games. But then you'd be kind of bereft and looking around and thinking, well, have I bought the wrong machine? I think with the success of PlayStation in the modern era, we forget that they had that difficult first console. Now we lord up the Wipeout posters and all that sort of stuff. But when that faded, what was left in the shop of Electronic Boutique was Lone Soldier to sort of bridge your gap from where you were to where they were going.
And I think this also shows that you got to remember a lot of these developers had had this thrown on them 3D. They'd come from 2D worlds, and a lot of developers didn't make it. They folded when the 3D era started. It was just like completely alien to them. No pun for Alien Trilogy.
Mm.
And you could tell that with them earlier games, some of
Oh,
the difference in quality for a similar genre of game was like, well, hold on,
you've only got to look at. I really like Nuclear Strike, which is the follow up to the Strike series on PlayStation. But you've only got to look at like the beautiful pixel art of the Mega Drive to the kind of stretched, warpy, polygonal mess that we got like I say, I like the game. I think the underlying
Yeah.
gameplay of it's fantastic, and I think the way the product's presented looked really nice. Again, it's not a game to talk about today, but as an example, that transition from 2D pixel excellence to achieving a similar look and effect in 3D, much as now the modern era people are struggling to get to 4K 60, 120, the era at that point was how do we make these polygons look good?
Mm, yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
case of Lone Soldier, the polygons weren't exactly there weren't millions getting chucked around RGT. I tell you that the main character probably consisted of about four polygons,
All
uh,
triangles.
all triangles, and it from memory it had like a mercenaries vibe to it, kind of like a go anywhere, do anything. I remember like a very early copy of like PSN magazine, some unofficial magazine, having this like a full page preview spread of it where they have the shots full height of the mag in the games magazine.
Mm,
It was like, oh, this Lone Soldier could be good. 16-year-old me pumped up on goodness knows what, obviously doubled down and brought Lone Soldier home, but it was a game that didn't stay long. A
yeah.
game that did stay a long time, though, RGT, if I may be indulged just a little bit more, because this is a game I just want to talk about so much. Alien Trilogy.
I had this on my list as well.
A game that I got at launch and I was having some success. I can't remember what came first, chicken or egg, whether it was Die Hard Trilogy or Alien Trilogy, but either which way this worked round, in my head, it set these up and the set 20th Century Fox Games division. It made me very excited at the time for the anticipation of what they were going to do with their other franchises or other things that they had hidden in the locker. Because Die Hard Trilogy, the first one to me, was an absolute rip snorting success.
Mm,
You bring home the light gun, you've got the 3D sort of explore platform kind of shoot 'em up section for number one. You've got the aforementioned gun game for two, and in three, you've got this awesome and what felt like at the time full city 3D driving, albeit with a timer. So to me, how this framed up Alien Trilogy was right up on the pedestal. Now, being an absolute sci-fi nerd at the time, I had like the Aliens books and all sorts of drivel. So when this game landed and you saw it in the mags, it was one of those times where you were like, yeah, I bought the right console. And
mm.
everything about this RGT, I don't know what your sort of mileage with it was, just
Um, I had a friend who had it back in the day, and I remember looking at it then thinking, this is what the PC boys are playing. This looks impressive. This
yeah,
is a first-person shooter. It's in the, if you're a fan of Alien films, which I'm a massive fan of, me and Mrs. RGT, this is Alien, and I was thinking, "Oh, this is good."
100%.
It
Mm.
was really good. I was never into FPS games then, but the thing I look at now, this is one of the if if you're a bit of a generation past the original PlayStation, going back to an original PlayStation is quite hard nowadays. Some of the games you'll think, "Oh, how did you play these?" But obviously, we have a nostalgia for it. But I think Alien Trilogy is one of the ones where the younger people can go back to. There's a big fad at the moment with these boomer shooters, which are first-person shooters, which look more
Mm.
retro and older. And this
Yes.
has that look. This is very playable. It's a very good
When was
game.
the last time you played it?
About 2 years ago.
I had a go on this probably in the last 30 days,
Yeah. Oh, really?
research for the show RGT.
Hmm.
And I will say this game stands up and holds up as good, toe to toe, shoulder to shoulder with any game from when it launched, the PS1 launched to when it ended. And I say, oh, George, are you comparing it to Metal Gear Solid? Well, no, but actually, when PlayStation washed up, I think this would feature as still an impressive looking game. It
Yeah.
nailed the aesthetic. We did get Alien Resurrection, I think,
Yeah.
as a game. Now that again had a bit of a weird stumbled launch and controls were interpreted in a very interesting way for modern gamers versus older gamers there.
Mm.
And that game's obviously found its legs in modern life, but there's something special about Alien Trilogy RGT. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is because by its component parts assembled together in the modern for a modern gamer, it should stink.
Yeah.
But it plays like an absolute gem.
It does. And like I said, it was, I had friends who had PCs and Quake and all the rest of it and
Mm,
Wolfenstein. That's where you play. You didn't really think of. I know there was ports came to PlayStation out, but you didn't think of that the PlayStation as being a first person shooter machine.
Certainly not initially. And
No,
maybe, you look at the legacy of PS1 and it's like, okay, it's a 3D platformer machine. Well, is it? Because you've got things like this, you've got things like Gran Turismo,
mm,
the plethora of sports games. There's a big mix there. It's a shame that it kind of is synonymous with Spyro and synonymous with Crash, but I guess that's more younger gamers' nostalgia. People like
yeah,
me and you, or me probably more specifically, was like right in the zeitgeist. Alien Trilogy to me is
mm,
that game. It's got
yeah.
that sort of caliber to it.
And like you say, it is very, very playable today. It plays really well. There's no, it plays as a first person shooter.
Yeah,
You know, you
controls are tight.
yeah,
Obviously, to be critical through the modern lens, like we are dealing with kind of like sprites in a way. So
almost sort of
an
2D flat sprites in front
an
of you, aren't you? A
alien's
bit,
going to
yeah,
come at you at some weird angles,
yeah,
admittedly, but the sound effects perfect. The noise of the
yeah,
doors opening,
brilliant.
the soundtrack from the minute you open the door, it's got that real good sound to it. And I think even in some ways, although it's not aged very well, the CGI movies that are attached to the game
Yeah,
are nice. They've got a good feeling and they've got that authentic film vibe to them.
yeah. And if you've come from seeing FMV on a Mega CD, it's worlds apart. It's completely worlds apart. So at the time, it was like, oh wow, this looks really good. Yeah, I
I've
think I think
I've
Alien Trilogy is a brilliant
I've
choice.
got a question for you, if I may be so bold, because this
Yes,
to me is your sort of true wheelhouse.
I bet you're gonna say what's top of my list, but carry on. I'll see if you've got it. I bet you found a bit of a curio in the sports department on there.
It's a sensible world of soccer 96, 97. Now my question
Oh
is,
no, that wasn't the one I was
oh
thinking
mate, I've seen. No, we'll come back to that. That was
of.
on my
Okay,
list as well. I have seen
yeah.
sensible world of soccer 96, 97. Just intrigued to get your because I was on the periphery, I had the first Sensi, don't get me wrong, but by the time 96, 97 rolled around, what platforms is this even coming out on? Amiga, PC?
I think 96, 97 may have been Mega Drive, I believe, and then over to um, PC, I believe, because Amiga was winding up when by then, so that was
That's what I
PCs
was
were.
trying. I was just trying to make business sense of the idea of releasing that. Obviously, the brand is dead now. I'll be honest. There's some stalwarts like you kind of propping it up, but the actual brand is dead.
Yeah, it's
Sensi.
matey. Forgive me, I forget his name. He's obviously couldn't use the brand name, so he carried on with Sociable Soccer, which I really played a lot on the Switch. That is the sort of spiritual successor to Sensible Soccer.
I agree, and I acknowledge that. But it's never found the success that Sensi did when it first exploded onto the scene as that top-down soccer game.
No, oh God, no, no. Sociable Soccer is made for those people who are craving to play sensible soccer on a modern bit of technology. That's all it
Six
is.
people, very generous of him to put all that time into a game that six people are going to play.
Steady. There's eight, but um, yeah. If I remember rightly, I'm sure this was sort of the last sort of swan song Amiga. I'm sure I can't remember which one came out on Mega Drive, but they were almost like the DLCs of the day. So you had like and they
Yes, because
upgraded the rosters and made it slightly bigger or had bigger world leagues. But
I've got two versions on the Mega Drive. One which feels like I've got a copy of it on the Atari ST. I've got a version on the Mega Drive which feels very vanilla. And then I've got another one, and I can't remember, but it's got a subtitle like you would have got on a DLC package back in the day, or one of the extra discs you would get for the ST or Amiga version. And I
yeah,
think it was all repackaged as a car, and I can't remember which one it was. Maybe World Cup or something along those lines. So
yeah,
is the sport game Curio actual golf?
no,
Because I want
no.
to.
Well, let me talk about this next one, and we'll go on to
Yeah,
actual golf. Right. Well, this one I thought you'd have picked up on because this game is called Goalstorm, and it is by Konami. Now
I
you
haven't
might,
seen it.
yeah, that is up near Space Jam. Um, Goalstorm, if you do a little bit of research, is the first sort of football game PlayStation wise that Konami made.
Mm.
It was almost, I would say, a test and bed they put this game out, and people absolutely loved it for the gameplay, bits and pieces. And then within what, a year, 2 years, ISS Pro Evolution Soccer was born out of this. This was like the precursor to Pro Evolution Soccer. Now, because of that, this game is rather expensive if you try and pick this up. It's
So this
quite
is a bridge between ISS and Pro Evo. Is that what you're saying?
no, because ISS was what Pro Evo was. ISS turned into Pro Evo as it went along.
I had ISS on Super Nintendo, though, did I not?
I think you had uh,
I did.
yeah, but ISS, they took on the ISS name and then it went to Pro Evo, but they done Goldstorm in between. Then it went to ISS, and then it went to Pro Evo. But
So is
obviously,
this is a
I reckon.
standalone separate? But is it
Did you have
using?
ISS on N64 instead, not Super NES?
Sure, it was on Super Nintendo as well. I
Oh,
remember Terry Blow being all over it. I'm sure it was on Super Nintendo, but it could have been on PlayStation 1, to be fair. So Goldstorm is like their first 3D foray into this 3D universe on PlayStation.
yeah, that was their first. And I never had it myself, but if you actually look at screenshots of it, if someone showed a screenshot and you're an ISS player, you think it was ISS, you think it was Pro Evo.
Ah, right,
So
okay.
this was almost like the test bed went out, everyone loved it, and they thought, right, let's start a series of this, and the rest is history. Um, if you want to pick this up, if you're a bit of a collector of these curios and these early developed games, I mean, this is quite hard to get hold of, and I think a box copy is sort of £60 to £100, depending on condition.
PAL or
Yeah,
NTSC?
pal. It's
Mm.
quite a rare game to get hold of. I would imagine just back in, I mean, on the PlayStation at the time, there was a slew of um,
Oh, there was.
football
Yeah.
games from thing. I mean, and some of them were absolutely shocking. I remember we used to always try different games, me and my friends, and we bought one called Three Lions. And how honestly it is abysmal. You play the game. If I remember rightly, it's a side view. When you go to shoot, it changes to like a first person mode, and it has like an archery target moving across the goal, of which you have to stop to where you want the ball to go into the net.
Mate.
And I was like, you've just completely stopped the play of football. It was just licensed rubbish. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, but I always found this one quite interesting because I thought that's nice to see where it all started. What first gave them that? They made this 3D football game and said, whoa, hold on, people are enjoying this. We're on to something here. And
Mm.
then the rest is born out of it. And I've just looked up. Yes, International Superstar Soccer was a one-off game on the Super Nintendo, which they must have used the name just for that. Didn't make any more. They done Goldstorm, then they went to ISS, which then went on to N64, PlayStation, and then they, with the Evolution,
So
went into
George was right.
Evo Soccer. Yeah, it was.
The Terry
It,
Blow was playing it on Super Nintendo.
he
I think
was,
the
yeah.
cart, obviously grey, had a blue label with a guy kicking a football out of the cart label.
Yes,
Something
that's
like
it. Yeah,
that.
he's kicking at a goalkeeper. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
that's
what?
it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Goalkeeper's diving. He's kicking it in the
I
net.
tell you, in the early days of sort of Super Nintendo collecting, that was a game you did see kicking around quite a lot. Loose
Yeah,
cart. Yeah.
yeah. Ironically, I think I've actually got it.
Nice.
um, but yeah, so that was
Let's
obviously.
steer back into a wheelhouse you're going to be safe in. Let's talk about actual golf because that's the game I picked up. Like I say, there's so many on here that I was just picking up, just feverishly, just trying to get a good PlayStation game, I think, and let that be a lesson to you. PlayStation wasn't home and dry from the day one. It's not the history that they write now did not look like that to a frustrated gamer
Yeah,
in
and also
'96.
you didn't know who was good devs at the time, so you had to sort of wade through the games and take
You
your chances.
literally did.
Yeah,
But one of the games that I got away with actually being not only a little bit good, but very good, and I've got a story to tell if we have time. But everything about this game felt like an evolution of every golf game that had come before.
yeah. It's rough if you go back now, though, George, as we know, isn't it?
Oh, yes, don't get me wrong. It
It's
looks
brutal if
it
you go
looks
back now.
like someone's chip bent teletext, to be honest with you. It's that kind of no. The individual holes, I think on the fly through with the talk over still
Yeah,
kind of feel semi-slick.
It
I
felt a step up from the 16-bit era golf games.
it was one of those games that you got home and you were like, yes, Dad's going to walk in here and see this and be like, okay, so you didn't waste all your money on that thing.
Yeah.
This is going to be like, that's actually doing something that I haven't seen a machine in this house do before.
Mm.
So actual golf was quite safe. I didn't really know anything about golf. The only thing I really knew about golf was there was a hotel not far away where people played golf. That there was a bag of clubs in the barn somewhere, and that my real only relationship with golf truly was through a PC copy of the 1992 PGA Tour series that we used to play on our dinner break, or whenever no one was looking, if I'm being honest.
Yes. When you're supposed to be doing data inputs.
Whatever it was we should be
Mm.
doing, we were, yeah, taking our time on that golf game. And then for this to arrive, and this is leading into the story, one of the van drivers at the place I was working at, he wasn't really into gaming, but he loved that golf game on the PC, and he was a bouncer. So it was like John's playing golf. Okay, no problem. And he, I said to him, I've got this golf game now on PlayStation. He was like, really? Bring it round this Sunday. I'll cook you a Sunday roast. My wife will, and we'll play actual golf. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, John. So my dad dropped me off, and then I walked with a bag with a PlayStation 1 in it, my much beloved and much travelled PlayStation 1, and this copy of Actual Golf. I think I took Alien Trilogy because he was into movies as well, and I think I wanted him to see it, or something along those lines anyway. And he was big into all the things I was big into at 16, 17. Wrestling, movies, particularly ones like Die Hard or anything with like a little bit of an action edge to it. He kind of woken me to The Last Boy Scout, and we sat down and we played a little bit of actual golf, and then we stopped, and him and his wife and his son, who was only small, tiny, we ate this Sunday roast, which is a bit weird. So I was like doing my posh eating around this bouncer's house, and then we went down and finished the 18 holes, and then I must have borrowed the landline to ring my dad to come drive the 20 minutes to come pick me
What
up.
was his verdict of actual golf?
Oh, mate, he absolutely loved it. Obviously, the sound effects were top tier. He was seeing it had a quite a big CRT tube because he was into his movies and his TV and all that. It was like his guilty pleasure, I guess. Um, and it looked and sounded fantastic on there. Even obviously, I was playing it on a little portable, so even I was getting a little bit of a treat, a downstairs TV like upgrade for the PS1. So yeah, and we just loved it. Yeah, we laughed, and you and I played it in the last 3 years together, and
Yes, yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge because the input system for a modern gamer is
That
very
power bar
archaic.
moves at a pace.
And look, all golf games interact through some form of sort of slidey bar that you have to slap at the top and slap at the bottom. Pretty much to simplify it, that is where most golf games are at and are still at. Obviously, we've moved to the kind of analog control now, but there was something about actual golf where it felt real. RGT. Good
Mm.
commentary as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
definitely. I
know
think
anything about golf, so who the commentators are obviously famous people. Is it John? Is John Daly one of the people that was doing it, or have I made that up?
he was a golfer at the time, so I don't think he
It
was a
wouldn't have been him,
commentator.
would it?
No, but I remember, yeah, I mean, we had part commentary on like Mega Drives and that, which I found amazing at the time for cartridges. But then suddenly to go onto that CD, you had the clapping, which sounded good, and
Oh
more
yeah, and then
atmospherics and the birds and the trees and
and the stories as well, the ad libs and bits and bobs that we'd never had before, where it was instead of just commentating on what was happening, there was a little bit of sort of broadening of the narrative, like real commentary would be, which I
yeah.
always thought added a little bit of something extra to it. Another game I want to talk about very lightly is a game here called Allied General. Now, I don't think I had that, but I did have a game called Panzer General, which had very similar box art where you kind of controlled a Panzer tank, like a realistic World War II game. My memories of it are a little bit oblique. I remember it being quite difficult, like a lot of those sort of military games, if they're going the full sim route, which, if memory serves, that one did. But they can be a little bit obtuse. Is there anything else you want to pull off this what we
Um,
were playing list RGT? Because there's a couple I could give a nod to as being sort of in the
well,
zeitgeist.
I was looking at Tempest, obviously by Llama Soft and Jeff Minter.
Yeah,
It just seems to have a legacy, that game. I mean, he even had versions of this right back on BBC Micros, and obviously they had one of the more successful games, if any, on the Jaguar with Tempest 2000.
and
Then
and Jeff Minter had a big run with some Llama based shooting games
yeah,
on the Atari ST, like it was his sort of second home, which I
yeah,
think
because I
why it
think
made
his
sense to go the Jag.
yeah, and his nickname was Yak, weren't it? So he just named
Yeah.
everything Llama Soft and yeah. Then you obviously got Tempest here X3, and I mean I've dabbled with Tempest games, and they're very they're of Jeff's time. They've got that trippy sort of shooter, but they even now you still get like modernized versions that you can get on Switch Store and bits and pieces like that. And it amazed me that such a unique game has got ports through nearly every generation of
Yeah, well, I think
system.
he brought a renewed version to the 360, did he not?
He
Not a
did.
Tempest, but I think of some of the Llama games, Llamas from Outer Space or some other thing along those lines.
Yeah, I've even got. I know. Sorry, this is an audio show, but Tempest 4000 on the PS4.
Hmm.
Um, so there was
Is he fully
always.
involved in that though?
I don't know. I mean, I know this is Atari, which I know he was always that was one of his favourable consoles that he made for, and
Yes.
but yeah, and just even then on the PlayStation, I think it's brilliant where we what we were saying earlier, where a lot of these developers were lost after we went into the full 3D and polygons and bits, but that Tempest and Jeff Minter and Llamasoft still kept going, and they still do to this day. And I think it's brilliant still having that sort of arcadey score. And I suppose would you call them a shoot 'em up? I mean, you sort of shoot down a tunnel, don't you, and
Yeah, I think
work
you'd
your
call it an arcade sort of shoot 'em up, wouldn't you, really?
yeah, very
It was at the
unique.
era where games were like that. That, as you say, unique is one way to describe Tempest.
Mm.
It's a rip snorting game from start to finish. Feels a bit weird as you kind of, if memory serves, you kind of crab around an exterior polygon into the screen, do you not? Like a circular
Yeah,
fashion.
yeah, it almost does look like sort of a lobster or something, like a little crab round the outside.
That's
Yeah,
right.
as the things come up, you sort of shoot them back down, and
Yeah.
there's sort of bonuses and bits. And a game you have to sort of learn the techniques and how you get round there quite quick. Originally, I would imagine that was probably better on a sort of a trackball, so you can guide it round. I think there is actually a version you can have a trackball on it, but um, yeah, and only one more that I saw here where I thought quite interesting, which is a game I've got yet still never played, and that is Shell Shock on the Sega Saturn. Um,
Yeah, uh that game has got some legs, hasn't it? I mean that I think from memory that I'd like I can't speak exactly because I've never owned it, but I think it had like some pretty interesting music, some sort of like edgy street characters based around tanks. Like I say, my knowledge of it is to see its artwork in various game shops as a game that
mm,
I've ignored time immemorial. Um, Maybe I should pick it up.
yeah, I'll have to dust the Saturn off and have a
It's
go and see what it's
interesting to
like.
see this is that true hybrid era where we're seeing games for the sort of, exiting Mega Drive stroke Genesis. We're seeing
Yeah,
games come for the, much maligned, but at the time up and coming Saturn. We're seeing PlayStation sort of hit its second wind as games like Alien Trilogy in the UK and Actual Golf, Crazy Ivan as one to speak of, were starting to sort of find a little bit of traction and
mm,
establish it beyond its launch games. Uh, yeah, a real interesting time. And actually, as I started pouring through these, it's like, yeah, played that. Oh, had to go on that. Or mate had that. Or it's interesting to see Pokemon Green and Red getting their presumably
got an
Japanese release.
yeah, I've got an interesting story on that as well.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Part of the news, yeah. And also, what I do know is that all the years we've done and the different months, I'll guarantee you there's always a football game, there's a bass fishing game, there's either a baseball or hockey game, there's a tennis game that these were constantly, and pinball. These were always constantly being redone and different games of the genres. And you got to remember back, I mean, nowadays, young people, you have EAFC if you play football. If
Yeah.
you play an American football, you're more likely play Madden. NBA if you're playing baseball. Back in the day, we had a slew. You had to wade your way through. I mean, the amount of football games I had on my PS1 until I settled on FIFA and then obviously over to ISS. But there was so many with Free Lions and God knows how many football spin-off games that all these studios were doing. And you used to just get so many of them, just pick them up second hand and see which ones sort of fit. And I can even remember playing hockey games on there because I'd sort of played EA hockey on my Mega Drive and sort of
Yes.
tried to continue, but that sort of faded out with me in this era. But yeah, absolutely
Just
brilliant.
before we hit the news, I
Yes,
feel like I've left an open goal, and depends how much indulgence you want to give me. But I want to just shout out to Civilization 2, a game I predominantly played on PlayStation 1 when I got one the second time around with the screen.
yeah,
Spent hours on that. But one game that we can't leave on the table, Duke Nukem 3D. Another
mm,
game that when we got a copy of it at work, we played that on the work machine. And just the things you could do in it that were just sort of to a teenager especially
yeah,
were like just real fodder to me.
yeah,
Using the bathroom, the sort of gaudy female bits, probably wouldn't sort of survive in a game nowadays without getting a crazy rating on it. But it was it was another one of those Doom clones. But do you know what? This one had its tongue in its cheek, and that's how I think Duke Nukem really, in its 3D iteration, really stuck the landing and kind of
yeah.
worked.
And you got to remember, it's probably Duke Nukem at its peak, and then they had
I
this.
think so.
There was going to be they had a few more spin-offs, and then they were going to be this big game. I believe it was for PS3, and 10 years later, that still weren't released. Then 12 years, and then I think it did release, but it was completely broken off it, and Duke Nukem had gone then pretty much, and we get sort of revivals from like Evercade and bits like that who are bringing back the older
I think
games. But
Bulletstorm did a Duke Nukem tie-up or something along those lines, did they not?
yeah, but after that big disaster of a game, that sort of faded away. So this was probably peak Duke Nukem at the time, and carried over to 3D very well. One of the
Considering
few
that
studios that
we
did.
had played it on Amiga and ST as like a
Yeah,
2D, like
side
almost
scroll and yeah, like Turrican sort of thing. It was, you
to
know,
come back quite unique pixel art in that first one, really. But maybe that's all it had in a world surrounded by that
mm,
tosh. But to come here and kind of nail that kind of failed movie star, part of a franchise, keep churning it out, somehow cram that into a 3D game, somehow cram that into consoles and home PCs, somehow get that humor to work, somehow also get that to pay respect to the first games as well.
yeah,
Actually, when you look back at it now, that was a real shrewd move and actually
yeah.
really quite cool.
Mm.
Did set him up for ever diminishing returns from like a gameplay point of view, I admit. Like when he faded, it was probably right.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's sort of seen its course, and the world was changing as well for a Duke
It
Nukem
was.
game at the time.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
but yeah, some brilliant games there. I hope you like that. That's probably what we would have been playing around in February 1996. But now we've scoured the very darkest back pages of all the gaming mags and even delved deep into this modern interweb to bring you what was the latest stories, all of which are from Computer and Video Games magazine.
Mm.
First up.
I miss CVG RGT, if we're going to
Yeah,
speak in acronyms
I
all
was
day.
actually, I just got, when I was researching this show, I found me three news items and then 45 minutes had gone. I was just cruising through. The amount of articles they have in this is just, I could have made about 5 shows for this for February.
CVG was, to me, like the upper echelon of the mags. Is a
Yes.
mag that you took seriously. You had a
Yeah.
similar
What?
vibe to Games Master when that turned up, but
Yeah.
CVG was the OG.
Yeah. There wasn't no messing about in this. There wasn't no, like we said last week, there wasn't no threads for screen warriors in this. There was
No.
this was telling gamers what you need to know. We've seen this, we've done this, we've been there. Have you heard of this? This console's coming out, this game's coming out. It's brilliant. There's so many, each some of the pages have 10 stories on, shorter articles you could read through, and it's brilliant. It's packed, absolutely packed magazine.
Great logo as well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, first up we have amazing Sega PAL conversions. By now, you've probably seen official copies of Virtua Cop with the gun in your local games shops. Then again, you probably haven't. You see, since it was released on December the 8th, gun packs of the game have completely sold out. With new supplies not set to arrive until the end of January at the earliest, if you look, you can still get the game without the gun, brackets. We don't recommend it though, or buy it as part of the new £349 Sega in-game package with no borders and full screen action. It's a mighty impressive conversion to, as in the UK version of Virtua Fighter 2, released on January the 5th. The game runs at full speed with only microscopic borders. We've played it, and we can honestly say it retains all the speed and timing of the Japanese version, although bizarrely, the character select screen has borders and some doesn't go red. This means it had been a Sega of America request. Although he still retains all his drunken prowess. Nevertheless, it's a cracking conversion and far superior to the slow letterbox PAL version of Tekken. Expect to see similar brilliance from the UK version of Sega Rally, set for release on the 24th of January. Incidentally, an amazing 700,000 copies of VF2 were sold into homes in Japan within the first 2 days of release, and sales of the Saturn compared to PlayStation in Japan went from 3 to 1 to 4.7 to 1 prior to the game's release. So there's been a bit of VF frenzy out there, as there has been in our offers, as you can see from part 1 of our awesome VF2 guide on page 78. Now, I'll put this one in there. Firstly, this was the time of light guns, things, like Virtua Cop and all that, and it was a time you had a CRT, and if you had a light gun, you could replicate that arcade gun experience at home. Plus, it's things like I know we always see Sega Saturn as a flop, but here, because of the release of this game, that's how big this game was at the time, to be outselling the PlayStation, to sell 700,000 copies of of Virtua Fighter 2 within, what do they say, 2 days? I mean, that is unbelievable. And even now, you still think, I mean, I know probably over in PAL regions, yeah, Sega Saturn did struggle. Definitely, it got absolutely destroyed by the PlayStation. But there was obviously glimpses of hope here that the Saturn was going to do well, especially they were still sticking with that arcade vibe rather than this big
I
3D
think
world.
I just think the Saturn era is just like we're just one more game away from making it.
Mm,
It did feel like that. They listened to the fan feedback about some of the early Sega Saturn arcade conversions, and they kind of sharpened up a little bit, and they've now come at it here. It's nice to see a light gun getting some success. It's nice to see peripherals selling out and going home.
yeah,
To be honest, like yeah, in the arcade you can play these shoot 'em ups and all that sort of stuff, but the more fun is had at home with some of these ones that come home.
mm,
Virtua Cop 1 and 2, Lethal Enforcers, all those sort of Police 24/7, I think it's another one of those ones,
mm,
Time Crisis, all that sort of stuff. Die Hard Trilogy, the second part. Um, this was the era, like maybe the best era for light gun games when we still had the tubes
definitely.
around that where they would work,
Mm,
where it was easy to do. And I think that we were a little bit sport for choice. I think obviously we got games on the PS2 and Dreamcast, etc., etc. But for me,
that was the
for my
wane, though,
use
weren't
of
it?
it,
I felt that generation that was then Wayne and light guns, they were sort of disappearing a bit, I
we'd
thought.
seen like my personal experience was this. I'd seen light guns at home, as the aforementioned Terry Blow's Super Scope had seen with envious eyes the Menacer, although in reality now I own one as an adult. Oh my God. So we'll leave that there. They were kind of like fun curio toys, but then when we got to the 32-bit generation, PS1 or PlayStation as it was known at the time, and the Saturn, it really felt like we did actually then genuinely get the arcade experience at home.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a broken version of what was before. It was kind of like a screen accurate version. The guns felt solid. It kind of progressed from
And
like a
also, they were
novelty
clever
add-on.
because the guns were very similar to the ones in the arcade. So you also,
Yes.
and they had that recoil. Some of them had the recoil
I
and
was
they
going
had
to
the
say I
weight.
had
And
a non-genuine one, Predator, a Logic III Predator or something like that.
Yeah,
Start button in a circle up the front, and then like red lights down the side of it. And I
yeah,
think it had like a PS1 lead end and a Saturn lead end,
yeah.
so
They
you
used to be
could.
multi ones, didn't
Yeah, it was by console. And then yeah, and because of that reason, there was just a plethora of guns on the market.
they? Mm,
Yeah, I think everything from this point down might have been a fade off. There were some high points. I think like House of the Dead 3. I'm kind of also wanting to talk about some of these sort of varying stats that are getting wielded up about Saturn versus PlayStation in Japan. And again, it does set obviously Sega and Sony's home territory is Japan. Although sort of console sales have faded there over the years, it's nice to see this was that heady moment where the new entry was really up against maybe a cultural kind of behemoth in a way with its previous consoles and its domination of arcades and even gacha machines. And Sega make all sorts of weird stuff. So much like Sony's a household name, Sega was as well, and then
mm,
Sony was stepping into their area. So it's nice to know that in the home market loyalty meant something.
mm,
Here in the UK, sadly, it didn't matter for a lot, but I think
mm.
that was more to do with the way the console was launched and handled and the way the games were released more
Yeah,
than anything else. Even the difficulty of coding for it, which is much discussed, I think, frame it up a bit differently. You heard an awful lot about PlayStation as a
yeah,
consumer.
yeah.
You didn't hear anything about the Sega Saturn.
No, and also obviously with PlayStation was easier to develop for and easier for the developers. So they basically said, look, here's all these dev kits going out to everyone. Just make games, put them on there, make games, put them on there. And yeah, and I think the devs are like, right, okay, let's give it a go. Sega was still in that; they were still a bit old school. You
Well,
still had to have that Sega.
to pay respects to one developer in particular, Core, I think from memory, Tomb Raider launched on Saturn first, but they didn't
Yeah,
really put enough fanfare into it. Now, there's a Digital Foundry video showcasing how Tomb Raider works on these different platforms. When you see it work on the PlayStation 1, it's something you and I can recognize. It's made out of triangles and it's this 3D mesh within a 3D universe.
mm,
When you see how they got that working on Saturn, where it's a load of pictures made up in a collage that are constantly generating as you walk through. I was like, what?
yeah,
How did they even get so far down the rabbit hole of trying to get this working or making this work as a lead system where they're having to like half bake a load of static stills and then skew the camera off by 10 degrees or a degree or something where you then couldn't see the joins. I implore everyone to go dig that video up because I was like, my full respect to them.
yeah.
We talked before about how we had Street Racer on PlayStation 1 and then we had it on SNES and Mega Drive and it was a different game on every one of them. This is like the true top level prestige version of them pulling that straight out. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And I think with the Saturn having those, I think originally it just had like a 16-bit chip, and they were going to make it an arcade machine. Late doors, they heard Sony were doing 32 bits. They literally doubled the chips up, but then you had to
I think it reminds.
you could sort of program in a 3D space. You had to almost sort of project the 3D like you were saying, rather than build up with polygons. And it was tricky. Core done an amazing job doing that.
Absolutely unbelievable. And, what a strange time for gaming. I
Mm,
just can't imagine that because we're never going to get to an era ever again, I don't believe, where a machine is fundamentally doing something that different to the other machine that they're so far removed from each other where a version might work here but it won't work there. You're going to see upgrades and downgrades in textures and different levels of quality of texture and pop in, all that usual drivel that we all talk about and ray tracing and this, that, and the other. But if Digital Foundry stumbled across a game on the Switch working in the same way or a similar or equally technically obscure way as it is on there as it is on, say, the Switch versus the PS4 version,
yeah.
I mean, you'd never not hear about it, would you? It'd be
No, no, you
incredible.
wouldn't. No, no, you wouldn't. No, brilliant. But yeah, that was all about the virtual copper gun. But leads us on to this next story, George. What's this one
Yeah,
all
well
about?
done, RGT. This is Sinuous. This is the a little bit of news. It's called PlayStation Light Gun revealed. Following on the success of Virtua Cop on Saturn, it seemed inevitable the PlayStation would have to follow suit with a gun game. Well, Sony have the situation well in hand and have commissioned Konami to create the required device, presumably because they have previous experience with their own Justifier guns created for the Lethal Enforcers game on Mega Drive and Super NES. Well, here's the result of their work. I wish I could show you this. I shall describe it to you in a moment using my superior vocabulary and seductive voice.
Mm. Looking forward to this.
Set myself up for a fall.
You certainly have.
And also, a few people have just sort of screeched to a halt in the car and gone, that's wrong on two counts, Panyo. But read on. I will, sir. You lady. Well, the results of their work, the PlayStation Light Gun, is unknown, and when the gun is set to release for, or how much it's going to cost. But the first title for it, Horned Owl, also pictured, big game, remember it well, is set for release on December the 29th in Japan, so it makes sense that the gun would be released at the same time. Strangely, the gun is done by Sony in-house, not Konami, and in fact Konami have no plans to release any games for their gun. It seems likely though that Namco are working on some gun-related titles, so we might see Time Crisis and, Tom Cruise's favourite, this Point Blank on PlayStation. There's a fact that sort of died in 1996, is there not?
Yeah,
Now, I promised the listeners a description of this weapon, RGT. Now, I have never seen this in the wild, so I guess
nor
this
have
never
I.
made it out.
No.
It's a gun, obviously, shaped in like a futuristic pistol style. The wire goes into the front of the grip, which is unusual for the pistols that came out after it.
Mm.
Looks like the start button's been relocated to the rear stock of the weapon, underneath where the trigger hammer would go on a normal firearm, and raised up on a circular piece of plastic by the look of it. Is a red button secreted on said piece of raised plastic, which I presume was some sort of start button. It's a pretty big board weapon, I would say. You wouldn't want to get shot in the leg if that thing was real.
I
It'd
was going to
blow half your
say,
leg off. It's a sort
it's
of
got a
shotgun
50 cal
cartridge
in there, I
size. Yeah, it
think.
looks like Hellboy's singular firing pistol. And then it's got like a front grip to it, maybe with some other buttons mapped onto the other side. I think if you were a right-handed person, that would probably make the most sense. I don't see any other buttons other than the trigger, which is surrounded by like a little plastic front guard. I can see screw holes all over the image that I'm seeing, so it looked like it assembled in two pieces. As for the game Horned Owl, I'm sure many people listening now thinking, oh, I listen to this because I want the expert's opinion on what these guys know. But they don't know anything about Horned Owl. Well, jump in the comments and let us know any way you find us. But Horned Owl to me looks like a light gun game which has a myriad of anime screens attached to it that kind of narrate the action RGT. If you know anything about that, please message in. I would love to know. All I know is the PlayStation gun never came looking like that RGT. Um,
No, yeah, that horned owl looks very anime. It looks actually quite good graphics for the time. It looks nice. I think it was
you could get
released.
away with Blue Murder though, couldn't you? Because you could just shoot at cartoons in these light gun games.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it was released in Japan. It was also released in America, I think, a year later, but we didn't get that in Europe, horned owl. That's hence why
My
we
integrity survives intact.
yeah. As for the gun, I would imagine that was the same because I remember. Well, I've got one up on my shelf, the G-Con Namco
Exactly.
Point Blank big box. Got that. That's what I always remember from the PlayStation era. And also, I also remember my mate who's the Resident Evil nut, who's very very good at them games. He also
About
got
to say.
He got Survivor with the little handgun.
Oh, because I've got a original PlayStation 1 controller that's specifically for
Yeah.
Resident Evil.
Yes, it is. That's button
It's not a
placements
gun
have
though.
changed. No, but if you get Resident Evil Survivor on the PS1, you got at the time you got the proper little handgun packed in with it.
Like a
Uh,
little 9mm Beretta or something.
that's it. I couldn't think of the name of it. Beretta, yeah, with the little brown stock on, and we used to
Yeah.
play that shit. Now a lot of people hated that game, but it actually is all right. It's a you know
Yeah,
it's
I'd second that.
it's Time Crisis with Resident Evil. The zombies. That's like House of the Dead.
It's a
Like
bit more rudimentary than that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's zombies come at you to shoot them out the way, and then that puts you on rails, and you go in the next corner, sort of thing. But
Yeah.
we had good fun with it, back in the day. But they're the two guns I remember. Obviously, this one I didn't. I would imagine because of the Horned Owl game only coming to Japan and America, it's probably where this gun was sold. But yeah, I put this in here basically just because of the link. I think they'd seen these figures here say, oh, um,
Well, I forgot about this second piece of news, but I was waxing lyrical about,
yeah,
gun games prior to was getting to that section of news
yeah.
about that gun. I scan read it earlier. I didn't, put two and two together, but there's me waxing lyrical about the pinnacle of gun games.
Well, yeah, and
Here we
obviously,
are.
like I say, Virtua Cop and Virtua Fighter are literally outselling PlayStations nearly 5-1 in Japan.
Mm.
And so I think Sony looked at this and thought, right, we need to get on this bandwagon. We need an arcade shooter in here. Yes, we're doing all the 3D stuff. Who are we going to get to do it? Well, we know who's built guns before, Konami. A strange though they designed it though, and then Sony built it. I suppose they wanted to make sure the tech was,
Like,
adequate and
I have no idea what went on with that arrangement. It obviously didn't last overly long in terms of like a
mm,
a production arrangement. Um, and that gun that you've got, the G-Con,
yeah.
absolutely flawless bit of kit.
It is a bit. It even has. It's got that mechanical sound when you fire it. The recoil is very. It's a good gun. It's got good weight to it. Always loved
That
using it.
Predator I mentioned earlier, it was a good gun. It is a good gun. I've got one now, but at the time it felt pretty cool. But you play it now, and I think the unit's pretty good example of what it was when it was new. The
Mm,
Predator one is very clickety clackety. He
mm.
feels very rattly, whereas I find the G-Con even now after years of play to be, you know, a proper bit of kit.
It does feel well built. The G-Con.
Yeah. And it doesn't have that rattly bit to it.
No, no, it
It's
feels
tight.
solid. Yeah, it does feel solid. I mean, when I used to have my game shed, I was then I didn't complete it, but I had a big rack that I'd built, and I was putting a CRT on top, holsters down the side, and then I was doubling up my consoles from Saturn to Dreamcast, um, PS1, PS all the way down. So I had the guns all plugged in. I was going to have a light gun station, so you could just play all the gun games. But
That would have been awesome.
yeah, I never completed it. I had all the rack done and the TV on top. And that looks so good. And I was just like, oh, I wish I could have carried it on because that was brilliant. I had the guns as well. And I thought if I could just
What was
fashion
the
some.
main stayer in that? Which was the one that was nearly always the go-to out of all of them? Because obviously Dreamcast had House of the Dead. I don't know if you probably had a
I
copy of
think it,
Silent Scope on there, what on Virtua Cop 1 and 2 on the Saturn. Obviously, all the games that I've rattled on about earlier for PlayStation without boring everybody. What was the
yeah.
one that stuck in there?
Time Crisis used to be popular. We used to like
Hmm.
playing that. I tell you what, I know this is going off piece into a different era, but one of the best times we ever had playing on gun games, and it was basically because you could play this on a projector. I'd set up in my shed because I had a big projector in my shed, 100-inch screen, right?
Yeah.
We used to play PS3 with the Move, House of the Dead in the guns on a 100-inch screen. I used to clear the floor and we used to stand and play that director's cut on the PS3.
Ooh.
Superb. The move's actually surprisingly more accurate than what you think. It was a lot more accurate than what the early Wii's were, and it was
Oh, yeah.
great fun. We used to play two players and huge screen shooting the zombies. I had stereo speakers round with the sound, my JMOs and the Technics used to sound brilliant. We used to have so much fun with that. And that's why I wanted to build this unit. So we had all the gun games there. But yeah, Time Crisis was popular. I wanted to re-get the Survivor. I know a lot of people didn't like that with the little Beretta, but I couldn't. That's hard to get hold of now. I couldn't find it anywhere, but it's probably a bit
I think
expensive,
to
I'd
find
imagine.
it with that Beretta as well is like getting
Yeah,
harder and harder because I think it was compatible with other light guns. So if you picked it up, it didn't matter that you didn't have the Beretta, but that
yeah.
package with that Beretta was special. And maybe people didn't like the gun, but to me,
I liked that gun. That was
it
good.
looked smart. It looked like it was from the Resident Evil universe. It was a little bit special.
Mm, yeah. Right, we'll go on to our third bit of news then, and this one is and the Game Boy 2. Rumor has it that the Game Boy is near enough dead in Japan, with game shops placing cartridges in bargain buckets near the doors. Surprisingly, then, that there is still a selection of new and impressive Game Boy software at the show. Takara revealed, would you believe, Game Boy versions of King of Fighters and Toshiden. Kirby's Block Ball is a rehash of the old Breakout theme, and showing there's still innovation in Nintendo's little handheld. Pocket Monsters is an interesting
Wow.
RPG which allows you to train and then transfer monsters from your Game Boy to your friends via the link up cable. Thus, you can accumulate a cartridge packed with rare and powerful specimens with which to do battle with. The game comes in two versions, red and green, with a different kind of monster. We're particularly intrigued by this game, so rest assured, when we get hold of a few copies, we'll delve further into it. Now, this is like one of the early articles of when this first dropped, because they're not even calling it Pokemon. Then they're still calling it the translation Pocket Monsters.
Yes.
Um, and they got some screenshots here of the green versions and the red versions of the game. Um, yeah, this just intrigued me because I just think when they were writing this, they had absolutely no idea of the size of what this would get to with
I remember
trading
reading
cards and
around this
games.
time, like it didn't break through here until it got the cartoon,
Oh,
and
okay.
and then it took off. The cartoon wasn't really here in this time, so I remember this like being on the periphery of gaming magazines like CVG as it built abroad, and I think there was like a moment where it was, last episode we talked about barcode battlers,
Hmm.
and this felt a little bit like.
Mm,
Because we were only on the periphery of the news. I don't think it hit home until what 99, 2000 here. It was kind of like it was
mm.
here, it was in machines, it was here as red and blue. Obviously, yellow came afterwards. Here it's presented as red and green, which is great. Um,
See, the Pokemon, I was just that bit older, so
oh,
I
I
was what?
know, but I was a weirdo.
Yeah, what do you mean were? Um,
I'm a
so
weirdo.
exactly. Thank you. I was I was that Alien Trilogy, Resident Evil, Tony Hawk's. Pokemon didn't click with me, and I can remember first hearing about Pokemon on the Game Boy, thinking you just collect monsters. I thought that's a kid's game, not interested. But then suddenly I was to see so many people with Game Boys playing the game, and then suddenly, like you say, the cartoon, and then you'd start seeing it in your gaming magazines all the time, and you suddenly think,
Yeah.
hang on, this is getting a bit silly now. People are mad on this, and I mean, you can tell how it lasts the test of time because a friend of mine's daughter, she's into a game. She's a gamer. She's in her early 20s, but then she borrowed an original Game Boy off me and a couple of copies of Pokemon because she wanted to play the original games and see what they're like, and had an
Mm.
absolute ball with them. Absolutely
Have
loved
you
them.
seen the value of a ratty copy of Blue Cart only though in somewhere like CEX? It's
No, what
outrageous.
price are we talking? I mean, I picked these up for a few pounds of. Oh no, do I dare look?
You must.
Oh dear.
It's to me it feels egregious. To you might think it's okay, but to put some more meat on the bone here, it's interesting to see how they're reporting that the death of the Game Boy in Japan is on the cards. They're kind of talking with surprise about how uh, King of Fighters is getting a Game Boy version. And
With your
then,
two buttons.
wow, bam, they kind of talk with a raised eyebrow about this game that uses a link cable. Prior to Pokemon, what games use a link cable? Like those launch games, that little logo on the front, like Breakout, F1, or Alleyway, or whatever it was called. Maybe Baseball had the functionality in. I remember trying to pick up all the Game Boy games from the original launch that had the link cable compatibility in them. There was a little annotated mark on the front of the cart that would let you know it was link cable compatible.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that kind of died then. I think there were the odd bit and bob game that kind of used it, but not really. But then all of a sudden, link cables were appearing out of everywhere because people needed them to share their Pokemon with each other. So it kind of breathed life into that kind of what you would consider dead accessory.
Yeah.
I guess Nintendo were like, "Oh, crikey, better make better make some more of
Yeah,
these."
because it was very much like you say a launch type thing. So I think you could play two-player Tetris with it as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
had the little
So I
link
remember there was
cable
that famous
compatibility.
photo of Scarlett Johansson and what's the other guy's name who plays Captain America?
Oh yes. Messages on a postcard to unofficial
I forgot
controller.
his name now.
I won't worry about it.
My daughter loves him. But anyway, yeah, there's a famous
Oh
picture of them
wow.
when they're filming. They're on a rest day and they're sitting there playing two-player Tetris on their Game Boys. So that was obviously they had nostalgia for it from when they were younger. But yeah, the link cable, I can remember because didn't you get a link cable boxed in when you bought a Game Boy?
I don't know as you did. I don't
I
think you
thought,
did. I
oh,
think it
didn't
might
you?
have been a separate accessory.
I always thought you got one boxed in, but I always remember thinking, what I must have had one anyway. And I remember thinking,
Oh,
what
maybe.
I remember, what do you use this for? And never really used it and didn't think
Do you know
nothing
what
of
it
it.
kind of reminds me of? Like the uh in the modern era, the link cable or the plug for the link cable reminds me of the plug that's on the bottom of the Wiimote for the Joy-Con.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, I've got
Because
a Pokemon themed one where it's like a Pikachu either end.
I didn't
Like
even know
that's the
they'd
only
done one.
you what,
Wow.
mate?
I didn't even know they'd done one of those. Like a
Yeah, I
themed
think it's
cable.
official. I'm
Yeah, bro,
like
must be, I reckon.
99% sure it is.
They probably thought, right, we're on to something here. They start launching some Pokemon themed
Yeah,
link
and
cables.
that's why I brought it up because I think it's the only link. Have I got an official one somewhere? I probably did when I went on that link cable run, but cart chase. But I don't know where that is, but I know 100% I've got a Pokemon one because I think it all wraps up in a little Pokeball that wraps around the wire, and then you got like a little Pikachu either side with a wire out of it.
I've seen them. Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, you are correct. I have seen those.
But I don't
Yeah.
know. I couldn't lay my hands on it because I always let the kids go feral. I mean, one of them had a Play It Loud Game Boy, which I don't even want to imagine what that's worth now in yellow.
Yeah, I've got the Pokemon Yellow Game Boy Color, is it, I believe?
Yeah, I think
Uh,
they did a color version.
I've got one with the little pack they had as well, carry case and all that came with, and
So
yeah,
the only carry case I've got are two. I've got two Game Boy carry cases which are covered. They're ASCII ones, and when you open them up, there's a place for the genuine magnifier. There's a place for the, and I
yeah,
took a bit of time to because there's a place to put your batteries. There's a place to put your different carts. There's a
mm,
place to wrap your link cable. There's a place to wrap your headphones. And I was trying to make sure that I had the official thing for its official slot in
mm.
this ASCII little case. And then there's a smaller one which is just like games and go. And they've got these little straps, but they've got these little grey grid patterns on them. They're I don't know why we're talking about this in 1996, but heck, I'm all in at this point.
Well, I was still playing the Game Boy in '96.
So here we are. So that's
Yeah.
legitimate.
Let me think. I finished my exams in, I think it was '95, and my dad done a thing where he done for my sister as well, because my dad always said exams are too stressful. Pick a holiday, I'll take you on a holiday. Being a teenager, I went right. I want to go to Ibiza. Well, I had to go with my sister and my mum and dad. I took a Game Boy, and I had for my Game Boy, yeah. So I had to try and keep
It's
them
the
out of the way.
wrong show to interrogate you about this holiday, so you need to
Yeah,
bring this up on the main
I
UCP
will
show because
do. I will do.
I want to get into all the nitty-gritty gory details
Oh,
of
I have
what
some
that looked
stories
like.
about this holiday. Anyway,
Did you share a room with your sister just to give
yes,
me
yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah. So
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. Trying to get in a manumission when I was 16. Anyway, there was I had a plastic. Can you remember the plastic hard grey Game Boy case?
Yeah.
You used to open up. I had that. Had all the games in. I had. It was such a lovely set I had. Anyway, I had it stolen in the end by a neighbour. But long story short, but I had that lovely grey
I
case.
love the idea, and I don't want to lean on it too hard, of a 16-year-old who's wanting to go to Ibiza trying to get in manumission, but then
I actually got in.
got in, they're back in
Yeah,
his room, he's playing Game Boy
exactly. Yeah, I went out
with his mum and dad.
cold cocks all night. Went back and played Super Mario Land.
Did your parents accompany you in there or not?
Good God, no.
So you were not chaperoned.
No. My sister was older than me, so she was supposed to be looking after me. So we were supposed to be going out for a hamburger, and she went, I'll tell you where we're going.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
Okay, well we'll pick that up another day. But you were
Yes.
there. What games were you playing on that Game Boy in
Well,
'96?
there was two games, and even though my dad forgets this now, it's probably due to his old age, but my dad was obsessed with Super Mario Land and Tetris. And
Hmm.
we used to sit round a pool during the day under the shade, sitting there, and we'd have competitions so you get the highest score on Tetris and see how far we could get in Super Mario Land. My dad loved it.
Super Mario Land is particularly brilliant on that Game Boy.
It's very good. And even now, when you look back at the Game Boys, I know, you show my daughter or people of that similar age, and they go, "Oh my God, it's only like a monochrome one color screen." I was like, "Yeah," but sometimes if you look carefully, it's got real good 8-bit graphics on. They really done well. I know it's the
Oh,
colors,
totally.
aren't they?
Well, that comes through when you play it on like a Game Boy Pocket with the e-ink screen or similar, and it comes through even more when you get to, like the Game Boy Color or stick in an OG cart and a GBA.
Mm.
Oh, hang on a minute. These have got some serious stuff going on under the hood.
Oh yeah, yeah, they done well, and yeah. So that holiday
This is where
was.
I did good because I raised my kids on Game Boys, so now they look at a Game Boy and they can appreciate Game Boy.
Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah, definitely a good call. My daughter did used to play a lot of retro, but not so much Game Boy. She used to play. She was actually really good at sensible soccer, so she used to play that a lot as a kid. But yeah, so I've put this story in, so I just thought that was interesting to see. Even on the screen here, the Japanese version has got the Japanese writing on this screenshot with pocket monsters underneath. It's just that even you look at the artwork on those boxes, George. I mean, you
Oh, I
wouldn't
know.
you wouldn't know that as Pokemon, would you? That was before you wouldn't think nothing of that. That almost looks like a Pokemon rip-off clone, doesn't it?
Well, when you go up earlier in the releases, it did have like that full because that's the front screen obviously attached to that article.
Yeah.
That's the press start to play.
Yeah.
When you go up in the article, there was Pokemon Red, Pokemon Green. It had the Japanese OG artwork on there.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, that is what they look like. So the
Mm.
the branding and the theming and everything that we've got now, to my mind, didn't really exist. Like that
Yeah.
original Game Boy games incarnation of this, that, or the other is really that true OG
Mm.
inception of what it was. It's great. It stands up really well. There
I
is one thing. I bought it on Apple TV, but I don't know where else it's available. But it was a retelling of the game's story of Pokemon Blue or Red. And I think it was called maybe Pokemon Blue or Pokemon Red Origins or something like that. And it was an anime story, but instead of telling the story of Ash, it actually told the story of like the player in the game of the OG Pokemons.
Oh
It was
wow.
actually kids loved it. I mean, I just checked in and out. I sort of read about it and thought I'll get them that because they love Pokemon. They loved it. This is two kids in 2014 that I took on holiday, and they took a Game Boy each, and in the back of it was a copy of Red, and in the back of the other ones was a copy of Blue, and they
Brilliant.
took that link cable with them. And I was a bit nervy at times because I was like, "Oh, crikey, if I lose that, like, what am I going to do?" But they were battling, swapping. They were living 2014 like it was 1999, and
That's
it was
beautiful.
it
That
it
is. That
was
is
beautiful
absolutely
to see.
brilliant. That is brilliant. I love
And
seeing
they
that.
were both fully invested in the story as well, which I think, for kids in 2014, I mean, they were young, don't get me wrong. But for them to be able to buy into the on-screen text, the story of it, when they had iPod touches and such similar devices within fingertip reach, the the pull of this game, and admittedly, the Game Boy's graphics are probably for them very accentuated because they know the Pokemon brand. They
Yeah.
know what Pikachu looks like, so they imagine it more as the cartoon version that they're playing with. But even so, for those kids to grip in on a monochromatic screen and get some fun out of it in 2014, I think speaks volumes to the actual brilliance of Pokemon without
Yeah, I
over
think
egging
so.
it too much.
That just reminded me as well because I saw a clip literally yesterday on YouTube on Shorts, and there was a guy was is now showing his daughter, getting her to play the game. She was about 7 or 8, but he was getting her to play his games he played when he was young.
Mm.
And the title was "When You Get Sidetracked in Ocarina of Time." and they were playing Ocarina of Time. His daughter was playing it, and he was like her wingman, guiding her through. And she was fishing. She caught this massive fish, and they go, yeah, yeah. And I was thinking, brilliant. She isn't sitting there saying, "Where's the ray tracing?" She isn't sitting there saying, "Where's the haptic feedback?" She's just enjoying a game from his era, and he's now
Yeah.
reliving it through her again and playing it. And I thought, that's beautiful. That is absolutely
I
brilliant.
had the luxury of watching, they didn't fully grip with it, but I had the luxury of watching my kids get out of Kakuri Village or whatever it's called, beat the Deku Tree and get out into Hyrule Village, no,
Yeah.
Hyrule Field. And that was nice to see that magic for them through their eyes, on a sofa with a bowl of popcorn, N64 splayed out on the floor, cartridge in. It was
Mm,
it's a nice memory for me, and and
definitely.
that Game Boy thing is a nice memory for me as well
Definitely.
because
That's
like they
brilliant.
probably got more
Brilliant.
wheels out of the Game Boy than I ever did.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And before we leave the news, I will just say if you want a mint boxed version of Pokemon Blue, it is nearly £200. You can get a loose cartridge for 32. Um,
Oh, I think that's still egregious.
mm, but if you're really into it, it's a bit more affordable than £200 for a box copy. But
Yeah, I'm very. It's a bit of a lottery because you're on the periphery Game Boy, well, Pokemon collecting. Let's just say just the carts. You don't know what you're buying.
you got to know what you're doing with them.
You gotta know what you're doing because you're putting down big bucks. Even like 30 quid on a Pokemon cart could actually transpire to be worthless
Yeah. Yeah.
if it's a clone.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Definitely nowadays, that's one of the most cloned games in it. So you have to be
It
very,
really is, and some of
very,
them
very
do,
careful.
literally indistinguishable.
Yeah, so if you are collecting, be careful there. Do your research before you buy the cartridges. But it's now time for what we affectionately call Stingray's Boot. What's nestled between some counterfeit nappies and a dodgy copy of Battle for Endor is some of the new releases for March 1996. Spring Stop Wow Whoa. What are you looking to pick out of the boot here then,
I
Georgie
am
boy?
very happy with the spring stop wow wall. I tell
I
you
knew you
what,
would be.
I tell you why I'm seeing Ray.
Yeah.
He's come dressed as John the Bouncer from work.
Oh, wow.
He's got a big leather jacket on. He's wearing some John Lennon glasses. He's absolutely massive as well.
Hmm.
He's got the look of an ex-wrestler because he was. He was Moose Muldoon, who wrestled at Skegness. And Ray, and he's got a shaved head, and he's got a little bit of look of Stone Cold Steve Austin about him. His son has come out as an overfed golden Labrador retriever type creature. That's how I'm seeing Wayne.
An overfed golden Labrador.
Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing.
Where they get like the sort of bulgy eyes and they've got like big barrel bellies and they kind of waddle rather than walk, when you've overfed a Labrador that bit too much. Because they'll eat. Yeah, well, Labradors like they just go "Rah, rah, rah," and then they'll eat some
Wow.
more. Yeah. That
Um,
that's that's how Wayne looks. What about you?
wow. That's an interesting look. I can see Stingray.
Yeah,
He's dressed a bit like Ash from Pokemon,
that's better, yeah.
but he's got it muddled up because he's got Pokemon monsters written on everything. He's got a bit muddled up between Pocket Monsters and Pokemon. You know, it's sort of got the look. I mean, Pikachu looks like a sort of slightly deflated gopher. So he's almost,
I would
yeah,
argue he's trying to get ahead of the curve, but he also had a warehouse full of Gordon the Gopher t-shirts he had to rework.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And then you got Little Wayne. He's stepped out of there. He's struggling because he can only move from his ankles down because yeah, he's dressed as a Game Boy, but it looks like it's sort of made out of sort of a mixture of cardboard and plastic. I'm a bit
I
worried
don't
because
want to get into the detail because it's your vision. But I want to know how someone can only move from the ankles down, like
because
because you're moving. What the listeners don't know is you're holding up your fingers like legs.
I'm going to explain as I go, but because
Okay,
the actual Game Boy comes all the way down to his ankles. So he is
Yes.
literally doing the foot shuffle. It's not a lot of backwards moonwalk,
So
if you
he's
can
not
imagine.
like he's not the paralyzed. He's just wrapped in a card
He's
box,
just
which is
completely wrapped.
restricting his movement.
It's restricted his movement and his breathing because the screen is sort of a painted green bit of PVC from a greenhouse. There's no air holes in there for poor Wayne. So
Oh, he ain't got his head out the top.
no, no, he's literally his face is in there, like a big Mario in the back of the screen. Yeah, it's disturbing. It's a disturbing image. Um, but yeah, so I
Paralyzed
always
from the ankle down. Show me this.
yeah, artwork, that a big stuff. Aye, aye. Um, what's your first game you're going to pick out of the boot then, George?
Resident Evil.
Yeah, I knew you'd do that one. Resident
I tell you
Evil, huh?
why, because I have so many good memories of playing that game. My dad popping in, getting wrapped up in it. My mum sticking her head round the door, getting wrapped up in it. It was, after Alien Trilogy and Die Hard Trilogy, and you could argue Wipeout in some ways. It was that game that you brought home and you were like, yeah, do you know what? This is something else. Yeah, it's on Saturn. Yeah, but this is something that's not happening anywhere else, or could have happened anywhere else, or is happening on anything else other than this sort of console at this moment. And it felt very PlayStation-y to me, obviously because I link it to that.
And also, you got to remember, it's the start of a generation of a genre. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and no one knew that at the time. I just
No,
thought it was going to be one of those standalone games, because what else can you do? And it hit hard, and it was, I was a bit scared of it at times, even as a teenager. I think the jump scares more than anything. There's nothing that sort of stayed in your memory from Resident Evil. It wasn't like one of those, overly stay with you, haunt you in your thoughts, can't sleep in a dark room sort of games, but it did have those jump scares that made it cool. What's your first game that you're picking? Are you going to go Resi as well?
um,
I wouldn't hold it against you. Well, I would, but also I wouldn't mind you picking the game.
I was thinking Resi, but also I'm trying to think of what I would have picked at the time, and it's going to be a weird one, but I probably would have bought this because I was still experimenting to try and find that ultimate football game. So it probably would have been Olympic soccer, to which I'd
I
have
thought
probably
you were going to say that.
I would have parted with like 40 quid and then got it home and realised it's absolute trash. The thing is now I love playing these stupid soccer games now. I love playing them. That's
Have you
so
played that
fun.
lately?
No, I played not lately. I played about 2 years ago. It's just hilarious. I love playing old football games because then you've literally, it's a bit like if you go back to Resident Evil now, you've got to relearn the controls. So it's like learning again. So you play these wacky football games. Brilliant. So yeah, I think my first pick will probably be, yeah, Olympic soccer. Go on, pick another one, George. What are you going to have as a
I'm picking Panzer Dragoon Zwei. It's a great
mm,
follow-up to a Saturn game. I see it here, and it's probably Japanese artwork. So hey, we're taking some liberties, but we can do what we like. I would probably take that. It's a good-looking game. It sort of evolved everything that went before it, and yeah, nice companion piece to Resident Evil.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think I'll go for. Oh, what would I have gone for on my second one? There's quite different forms of genre.
That Z6 in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think just because I think they've relaunched it and remade it just of lately is Heretic. Um,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's had a remaster just of late, isn't it? So that would have probably been an intriguing one for March of 1996.
It's FPS though, isn't it?
It is.
For you.
Not nowadays. I'm okay with especially the older ones.
Don effects of travel sickness tablets.
Yeah, I'm playing an FPS again. Yeah, so it intrigued me. A few noticeable ones there. I mean, um, Xevious 3D. I don't even know that had a 3D version.
No.
I think I've got the Master System game of that. I suppose that was another one a bit like Gallagher and um, what are the other shooters that all tried to go 3D? R-Type and bits and pieces. They all tried to hand it to 3D and fit it into a 2D shooter somehow. Dragon Ball Z, a mate of mine's mad on Dragon Ball Z. Nothing that ever stuck with me, but one of those games was out. Dragon Force on the Sega Saturn. Do you know that game,
Yeah.
George?
Is it RPG?
That must be. I mean, that's a PAL cover, so it must
One
have done
thing I
well.
want to drag your attention up to is the fact that we've got 3D Tetris on Game Boy, Virtual Boy,
Yeah,
which I completely blindsided me. I was like, hang on a minute, really?
yeah,
So you could be sat at home playing Resident Evil, or you could be taking this monstrous looking thing, not even on the go,
yeah,
and
yeah.
playing Tetris on it for about, I've done the sick noise about 3 times, but I think, give it 10 minutes on 3D Tetris on Virtual Boy, and you'd be being sick for a good
You
couple of
can
weeks.
you can try it again soon because it's coming to the Switch library. So
Yeah, only
only
if you get
online.
that ridiculous peripheral or make the card one.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I kind of, yeah, you add in benefit, but not really. But there'll be some nut jobs, possibly me, that go and buy a Virtual Boy dock for the. No, I'm not doing it. I won't do it.
No, you will. Um,
In your
Also, it
face.
intrigues me here is Virtual Fighter animation for the Master System. Now, I mean, that must be, I mean, that is a late release. So would that have been just a sort of a one for like the Brazilian market? Because they were
Show
really
it to me. Show it to me. Which page
just
is that
above
on?
Heretic, just above Heretic on page 3, is it?
Yeah, well,
Or was it a compilation for something else? That's always
I wonder
intriguing.
if it had something to do because I can't. I'm not an absolute sort of out and out nerd. But there was a Virtua Fighter kids game or something similar released for Game Gear.
Right.
You don't think it's tied up with that, do you?
That might well be. I'm just having a quick look to see if I can find
Because
anything
obviously the
about
Game
it.
Gear and Master System games were pretty much, for the most part, interchangeable. What you got on one, you got on the other, like the Sonic games, etc., etc.
No, it was Game Gear and Master System. So,
This
okay.
Virtua Fighter animation,
Yes,
did it
yeah.
go by any other names?
It went by in Japan as Virtua Fighter Mini.
Maybe that's what I'm remembering. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a. I didn't know it was on Master System. The only time I've seen it in person, I think, is on maybe Game Gear. But God knows where or when that was. That'll be one that
yeah,
our co-host Scotty will be intrigued to get his mitts on. I'd imagine. I don't
yeah,
know why though, because I bet it's garbage.
probably. Especially on an 8-bit with your two buttons, it's going to be a little bit tricky to pull our moves off. A bit like what was it on the Game Boy that they said was coming out? King of Fighters.
Yeah, or I think Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy, you had to use start to make the buttons from. So
That's comfortable.
one and two were punch, but then you press start, and that made one and two kick. So can you imagine putting in a combo? I mean, that kid would be popular with the ladies, or vice versa. But yeah, it would be. I don't think I've. I don't think I've ever seen anyone play it on the Game Gear and not just punch their way to victory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just got a button mash that bad boy. Um, Speaking of which, my movie pick is going to be
Yes.
Bad Boys to link it in.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was a
Well,
late 1995 film, but that would have been about the time I'd have been getting that. So
let me link it even further because
yes,
I'm going to pick Independence Day.
yeah.
You
When
like
was
that,
that?
don't you?
That was a late one. That though 96, late
Hey, look,
96.
I'll take every liberty I can
Yeah, but then
take.
again, you probably got that from Stingray, ain't you? So
Oh,
it's
that's exactly where we're getting it
yeah,
from.
yeah. And I always say you do have someone getting up halfway through the film going to the toilet on the screen, but it's Independence Day.
In the copy he's given to me. The person who stands up and goes for a wee in the middle of the movie is the person that's recording it. So it's a little bit of an extra treat. You get to see what the bathrooms
Wrong
look
show.
like.
Um,
You're right. You're right.
Wrong
No,
show.
I don't know. I don't know.
Don't drag it down to that level. Um, Come on, come on, you're big boy now. Um, yes, so good
Talking
choice in
about
film.
children's toys.
Independence, yeah, Independence Day, and Bad Boys, two great films, especially from that era. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a look at February
I did.
1996. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed those stories, things that we just take for granted now, but then when you actually start reading them back in the day, um, that's awesome with the light guns. When you see the stories about pocket monsters, which obviously becomes the massive thing that's still going to this day. I wonder how many total copies of Pokemon are sold over the years. I mean, a lot, I would imagine.
Millions.
And it's one of them
Millions.
that's from the sort of the start of especially handheld gaming right up to modern day gamers. A lot of people have all played Pokemon, whereas a lot of games are new and old, and some are gone, but Pokemon's still there. So that found that interesting. Nice looking at the games, what we're about, and like George was saying, that crossover of things still being released for Genesis and Master System,
Mm.
Game Gear, Game Boy, but we were coming into that 3D age with the
You probably
polygons and
still
bits.
felt like you were some form of a prudent gamer by hanging on to your Mega Drive at this point, 'cause PlayStation felt a bit too risky.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a console by Sony. I mean, they make tellies and stereos. What the hell's going on? Why are they making a console? They don't know what they're doing. It will never last, George. It
And
will
I
never
bought it,
last.
so it was really guaranteed to flop. But yeah, I guess when I got out to get the holiday money for a lad's holiday, they were like, right, push now, push now.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. I hope you're enjoying the shows. A lot of say that aren't just going to be like in the 90s. We're going to go right up to mid 2000s and bits and pieces and see where we were. It isn't just really old retro. Hopefully, there's a bit for everyone in here. If you're intrigued to join a bit of the community, jump on over to the Unofficial Controller Podcast Discord. It's a great little family in there. We've got some new members just joined. If you're into retro, it's sort of followed over from Flashback. Jump in there and, have a listen to the Unofficial Controller Podcast as well. Check out our website at unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com. We will soon be adding a Flashy B page on there as well. So that'll all be linked in. There is bits on there now, but we'll get that all done as well. Yeah, and just to say thanks to you, George, as always, for joining me.
Bit of
on this.
housekeeping from me, just
Yep.
quickly, 30 seconds max. Please help us push Flashy B. We've launched this new spin-off show. We just could do with some reviews and some ratings. We know you've all got very used to leaving reviews and lots of ratings all over the place, nice ones as well. So very grateful for the main show. But we must just ask you to soldier up one more time and come and give Flashy B the love that we think it deserves. And you're showing us that you're really enjoying it. So we'll keep doing more of it. But just help us get this in front of more people who are going to love it. Don't be naughty and keep it as your special super secret little sneaky podcast. Spread it round.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you could, that makes a review, and especially a download rather than a stream, makes all the difference. If you're new to the show, this is your first one. This is episode 9. We have 8 other episodes plus a pilot. So if you could download those as well, it makes a massive difference. Have a little listen to them all. Let us know what you think. And like I say, if there's anything you want to let us know about, you can contact us on Instagram or X, or even on questions at unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com.
Or I'm finding, we're even interacting in the comments on YouTube. So wherever you
Yes.
find this, however you're listening to it, if you want to engage, you throw
Yeah.
something down. Don't forget, it's normally me you're going to be talking to. So I'm slow, inept. I'm a gamer from the 1996 era with still a cognizant memory. So using a modern piece of equipment, RGT vouch for me, it's a bit beyond me, isn't it, really, to be fair?
Oh God, yes.
So patience, please.
I'm recording this with him for a Commodore 64 with the old dial-up.
I
So
refuse to use anything else.
yeah, exactly. And he's got an old retro microphone he's holding in front of his mouth. He looks like a news reporter from
It's just a
1974.
prop.
Yeah. He's just shouting loud. But yeah, so thanks everyone. Hope you're enjoying it. And this was, like I say, February 1996. And I just have to say, Flashback, the games you loved, the stories you forgot. See you, everyone, and I'll see you next week, George.
You absolutely will. See you soon, everyone. Thank you.
Fly